Do you believe in cursed objects? I don't mean the kind you see in movies, the possessed doll, the haunted mirror, the dusty old box in the attic that unleashes demons. Those are easy to laugh at because they're safely trapped behind a screen. You turn off the TV, the fear fades, and life goes on. But what if there was an object you could actually visit? Something so notorious. People fly across the world just to see it, only to regret they ever did. What if I told you that right now, in a small, sun-soaked town in Florida, there's a doll locked in a glass case that people whisper to as if they can hear them? Some stories you can laugh off. This isn't one of them. Because the thing about this doll, the thing about Robert, is that the curse doesn't stay in Key West. At least, that's what they say. People claim that even just hearing his story, even repeating his name aloud in the wrong way, is enough to draw his attention. And before you roll your eyes, think about this. The museum where Robert has kept his entire drawers filled with letters. Hundreds of them. Letters from tourist skeptics, even locals. People who mocked him, snapped a picture without permission, or thought it was all just a joke, until their luck turned. They write apologies, desperate and rambling, begging Robert to forgive them. By the end of this story, you might decide for yourself whether Robert's just a doll or something far worse. But I'll warn you now, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. If you're still here, don't say I didn't warn you, because Robert the doll isn't a movie prop. He's real, and people still fear him. And maybe, after tonight, you will too. Key West, Florida. If you've ever been, you know it feels like stepping into a postcard. Pastel-colored houses with tin roofs shimmer in the sunlight. Palm trees sway lazily in the breeze. The streets smell of salt water, sunscreen, and spiced rum. Tourists ride rented bicycles, flip-flops slapping against pavement, and vendors call out from open-air stalls selling seashell necklaces and frozen margaritas. It's the kind of place people go to forget their worries. A little tropical escape where the loudest sounds are gulls screeching overhead and a clink of ice cubes in a glass. On the surface, Key West is nothing but paradise. Warm nights, endless sunsets, and the kind of charm that convinces you nothing bad could ever happen here. But paradise has shadows. Because tucked away in this little island town, past the neon bars and the cruise ship docks, there's a museum built into the old brick bones of a Civil War fort. Most visitors wander through casually at first, snapping photos of cannons and rusted tools. But eventually, they reach a corner where the air feels heavier. A corner where a glass case stands, lit just enough to reveal what's inside. And what waits inside is not a relic of war or history. It's a doll, a 3-foot figure in a faded sailor suit, clutching a small stuffed toy of its own. Its face is worn, its features soft and strange, but the eyes, button black and unblinking, follow you. Everyone swears they do. Here, the laughter stops. The chatter dies down. Tourists step forward hesitantly, camera phones in hand. Some whisper to each other. Do we have to ask permission? They glance nervously at the sign posted nearby, warning them to show respect. Then comes a ritual. A quick photo snapped, followed almost instantly by a quiet, embarrassed apology. Thank you, Robert. Sorry, Robert. Words mumbled to a doll, as if the consequences of not saying them were too big a risk to take. In a place where most people go for sunsets and rum cocktails, there's a locked glass case where people approach in whispers. Key West sells itself as a paradise you'll never forget. But for many, what they remember most vividly is Robert. Like all legends, Robert's story begins with something deceptively simple: a gift. At the turn of the 20th century, the Otto family lived in a large, elegant house in Key West, a towering home that still stands today. The Ottos were well-off, well-known, and outwardly respectable. But behind the closed shutters, things weren't as picture-perfect as they seemed. Their son, Robert Eugene Otto, everyone called him Gene, was a quiet, artistic child. And like most children, he craved companionship. One day, he received a doll. Where exactly it came from depends on who you ask. Some say it was a gift from his grandfather, purchased in Germany. Others whisper it was given to him by a servant in the household, a woman said to practice voodoo. The version you choose depends on whether you believe Robert the doll was born of chance or of malice, but every version of the tale is darker than the last. The doll was nearly life-size for a child. 3 feet tall, stuffed with wool, dressed in a sailor's outfit that had once belonged to Gene himself. Its face was strange, not quite human, with beady button eyes and a small, unsettling smile that always seemed to change depending on how you looked at it. Some swore it was mischievous, others cruel, but to Gene, none of that mattered. From the moment the doll came into his hands, it wasn't just a toy, it became his closest companion. He named it Robert after himself, and from then on, boy and doll were inseparable. Gene took Robert everywhere, to the dinner table, into town, even into bed at night. The servants would overhear him talking to the doll, giggling with it, sometimes arguing in 2 distinct voices. They swore they heard a deeper tone answering Gene back when no one else was in the room. And then came the accidents. Small things at first, broken toys, misplaced items, strange sounds at night. When his parents asked what happened, Gene had a simple answer every time. Robert did it. The phrase became a fixture in the household. A vase shattered in the middle of the night? Robert did it. Footsteps echoing in the hallway? Robert did it. A neighbor insisting they saw movement in the upstairs window. When Gene wasn't home? Always, the explanation came back to the same 3 words. Robert did it. It would be easy to dismiss all this as childhood imagination. Kids blame toys all the time. But people who visited the Otto home noticed something peculiar. They said the doll's expression seemed to change when you looked away and back again. They said its gaze was unnervingly direct, too focused for something made of fabric and stuffing. I've seen that look myself, the kind people describe, like it's not just staring at you, but into you, watching, waiting. Over time, even Gene's parents began to grow uneasy. Strange noises, muffled laughter, objects moving from one side of the room to the other. The doll was never far from the center of it all. Still, Gene refused to let Robert go. To him, the doll wasn't just alive. It was his best friend, his confidant, his shadow. Whatever truly happened in that house may never be known. But what is certain is this. The day Gene received Robert was the day a story began that would outlive him, his family, and perhaps all of us. A gift that should never have been given. A toy that was never just a toy. Robert wasn't in Gene's life by accident. The Otto house was beautiful from the outside. Whitewashed walls, wraparound porches, the kind of place neighbors admired as they walked past on sunny afternoons. But inside, things were different. It began subtly. At night, Gene's parents would hear the sound of small feet scurrying across the upstairs floorboards. At first, they thought it was their son playing. But when they opened the door, they'd find Gene fast asleep in bed, Robert tucked neatly under his arm. Then came the laughter, high-pitched, childish giggles echoing from behind closed doors, followed by the low rumble of another voice, a voice that didn't belong to Gene. I swear I heard 2 voices in the room. One servant whispered. One was Gene's. The other wasn't. Visitors, too, noticed strange things. Guests sitting in the parlor swore they heard muffled conversations drifting from the nursery upstairs. Furniture would be found overturned, toys strewn across the floor, as if some unseen tantrum had erupted when no one was around. Each time Gene was questioned, he gave the same flat reply. Robert did it. The phrase became an explanation for everything that went wrong in the house. But the Ottos were not alone in their suspicions. Neighbors passing by claimed they saw the doll standing in the upstairs window, its button eyes fixed on the street below. They swore it shifted positions when no one was inside. Some even crossed the street rather than walk directly past the house. As the years went on, the energy inside the home grew heavier. Servants left abruptly, some refusing to work another day in the Otto household. One maid confessed that she found Robert in different places and she had left him, propped against a chair when she knew she had locked him in a chest. Whispers spread through town. Was it simply a child's imagination spilling over into family gossip? Or had something darker taken root in the Otto home? Gene's parents tried to separate him from Robert, but it never lasted. The boy's attachment to the doll was too strong, almost unnatural. Whenever they removed it, Gene became distraught, screaming, begging, insisting Robert needed to stay. And each time, the disturbances grew worse until the doll was returned to him. Visitors said they heard it whispering. The family insisted the doll answer back. The truth was impossible to pin down, and that uncertainty was the most terrifying part. Was it all coincidence? The flights of fancy of a lonely child? Or was Robert something more than cloth and stuffing? Whatever the case, one thing was certain. Robert never left Jean's side. And as Jean grew older, his life would change, but the doll remained waiting. Most children outgrow their toys. They leave them behind in dusty trunks or attic boxes, relics of a simpler time. But Jean Otto never did. He left home, studied art in Chicago and Europe, built a reputation for his strange, surreal paintings. For a time, it seemed like Robert was nothing more than a memory. But when Jean returned to Key West as an adult, inheriting the old family house, the past was waiting for him. Robert was still there, and Jean welcomed him back as though no years had passed at all. He placed the doll in a chair near his studio window, positioned so it could watch him work. He spoke to it often, sometimes pausing mid-brushstroke to turn and whisper, as though seeking approval. His wife, and found the habit unnerving. She tried to laugh it off, but late at night she admitted to friends that she heard footsteps pacing in empty rooms, soft laughter echoing from a hallway. Visitors to the house noticed it too. When invited for dinner, they often asked to sit far from the doll's gaze. More than one guest swore Robert's expression shifted during the evening, the button eyes narrowing, the mouth curling ever so slightly as if in private amusement, and begged Jean put Robert away. But he refused. The doll wasn't a toy anymore. It was part of him. When accident happened, tools misplaced, paintings ruined, strange stains on the walls, Jean's explanation hadn't changed since childhood. Robert did it. Some neighbors said Jean spent more time with the doll than with his wife. They whispered that Robert was the true master of the house and tried to endure it, but the atmosphere became unbearable. She avoided certain rooms altogether, unwilling to be alone with it. And through it all, Jean grew older. His health declined, but the bond remained unbroken. Some say he spoke to Robert until his dying day, carrying on those whispered conversations long after the rest of the house had fallen silent. When Jean finally died in the 1970s, the Otto home was left in disrepair. But Robert remained, seated in his chair by the window, waiting. And that's the thing about Robert. People die, families move on, lives fade into memory. But the doll stays. After Jean's death, Robert didn't disappear into obscurity. Instead, he was given a new home, the 40s Martello Museum, a Civil War-era fortress turned gallery. There he was placed behind glass, sailor suit pressed, stuffed toys still clutched in his tiny hands. At first, it seemed harmless enough, just another oddity for tourists to gawk at between cannons and relics of war. But almost immediately, stories began to surface. Visitors reported a chill when they approached the case, as if the air thickened. Photos taken without permission came out blurred or corrupted, sometimes showing streaks of light across Robert's face. And worse, people swore their luck turned sour after mocking him. Car crashes on the drive home, sudden illnesses, breakups, lost jobs, financial ruin. The museum has drawers, literal drawers, full of letters from those who claim they've been cursed. They're addressed directly to the doll, each one pleading for forgiveness. Robert, please forgive me. Since I disrespected you, I lost my job, my girlfriend, and my health. I didn't believe in you. Now my car is totaled, my house is gone, and I'm begging for your mercy. Some are neatly typed, others scrawled in panic, with shaky handwriting like the writer couldn't finish fast enough. All of them sound the same, desperate, frightened, convinced that Robert is somehow responsible. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Whether you believe in curses or not, thousands of visitors now approach his case with the same ritual. Ask permission, snap the photo, then whisper thanks. Because maybe it's all superstition. Or maybe Robert is still listening. And if you think these are just coincidences, let me tell you what happened to me. I laughed it off at first. Big mistake. When I visited the museum, Robert's case didn't intimidate me. I'd already read the warnings, the stories about asking permission before taking photos. It felt silly, like a tourist gimmick. So, when my turn came, I lifted my phone, snapped a picture, and walked away without a word. That night, things started small. My car wouldn't start, though it had never given me trouble before. I brushed it off. Later, my laptop crashed mid-project and refused to turn back on. Annoying but manageable. But then the dreams came. Night after night, I'd wake up drenched in sweat, convinced I'd heard tiny footsteps in my room. Once, I swore I saw a small figure at the end of my bed, watching. I told myself it was just my imagination, guilt playing tricks. But deep down, I wasn't sure anymore. Finally, I did what so many others had done. I wrote to Robert. I typed out an apology, my hands trembling, and sent it off to the museum's address. Do you think it was coincidence? Because I'm not sure anymore. Robert isn't the only doll with a reputation. Across the world, stories of cursed figures keep surfacing, as humanity has always sensed something uncanny about objects made to look like us. In Japan, there's the Okika doll, said to grow real human hair. In Connecticut, there's Annabelle, locked behind glass by demonologists and immortalized in Hollywood. And there are countless smaller tales, family heirlooms, handmade toys, relics of grief or obsession, that seem to take on lives of their own. So what makes Robert different? Why is it that, even after a century, his story hasn't faded? Some researchers suggest spirits can attach themselves to objects, feeding on attention, memory, and fear. Others go further, pointing to the concept of a tulpa, a thought form, something created by belief alone. The idea is simple but chilling. If enough people believe something is alive, it might become alive. And think about Robert. For over 100 years, people have whispered his name. Children feared him. Adults cursed him. Tourists write letters, confessing sins to a doll in a sailor suit. Thousands upon thousands of people pouring belief into him. If thousands believe a doll is alive, does that belief make it real? That's what separates Robert from the others. Annabelle is protected in a locked room. Okika never leaves Japan. But Robert sits in a small museum in Key West, welcoming new believers every single day. He doesn't need Hollywood. He doesn't need priests. He has the stories, and the stories are enough. And the strangest part? People don't laugh at Robert. Even skeptics, even those who roll their eyes, still hesitate. They ask permission before the photo. They whisper thanks before they leave. Because whether they believe or not, no one wants to risk what comes after. Maybe Robert is a cursed object. Maybe he's a tulpa. Maybe he's something else entirely. But the scariest part? Robert's story isn't finished. Here's the part where things get tricky. Because some say even hearing Robert's story can invite his attention. I don't mean visiting the museum or snapping a photo without asking, though those are risky enough. I mean this, right now, you, sitting in the dark, listening to my voice. Some people believe Robert notices, that when his name is spoken, he listens. If you're listening right now, Robert knows. I can't prove it. I don't want to, but I've had enough people message me after videos like this to make me hesitate. Stories of streaks across their photos, lights flickering in their homes, nightmares that started the night they press play. So here's what I'll say. It's better to be safe than sorry. Show respect. People who walked away unscathed often say they did one simple thing. They greeted him. So if you want to be cautious, scroll down and leave a comment. Hi, Robert. Or, thank you, Robert. People say it helps. Maybe it's just a community in-joke, a way of playing along. Or maybe it matters more than you think. Because even if you're laughing now, ask yourself, do you really want to risk it? It's easy to treat this like another spooky story on the internet. But Robert isn't fiction. He's real. And if the people who begged him for forgiveness are to be believed, he's still paying attention. So here we are at the end of Robert's story, or at least the part one can safely share. But endings don't always feel like endings, do they? Sometimes they circle back, the way shadows return when the lights go out. I'll leave you with this. When I checked my phone just now, the photo I took of Robert, it's gone. Not deleted, not corrupted. Just gone, like it was never there. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's everything. And lately, I've been hearing things in my own house. Light taps against the walls at night. The faint creak of footsteps in the hall when I'm alone. Do you believe in cursed objects? You might not have before, but after tonight, maybe you're not so sure. And if this upload suddenly disappears, you'll know why.